Great news. This isn't fucking happening. So the Supreme Court today just ruled that public funding cannot go towards religious charter schools, particularly this one in Oklahoma. So for those who are unaware of this story, basically a charter school run by the Catholic Church of Oklahoma was demanding public funding. Now that's not shocking in and of itself. What is shocking is how far they managed to go. They made it to the Supreme Court, which, given this court's past rulings, a lot of us were very understandably worried. This court really likes the idea of Christian nationalism, which thankfully it didn't go that way. But it almost did, because the vote was only 4-4. Now the only reason it ended up actually going that way is because after Comey Barrett was caught working with the firm that was bringing this case, she recused herself. And of course this was unsurprisingly split by party lines. So half of the court decided, fuck the Constitution, let's allow public funding to go to religious schools. Now, there are so many reasons why it's a bad idea to give public funding to religious schools. And it's even more offensive that they're even trying to bring this case, because keep in mind, this is happening in Oklahoma, a state that ranks 49th in public education. This is far from the first time the GOP has tried pushing religion into Oklahoma schools. A few months ago, they tried, albeit unsuccessfully, to put Trump Bibles into schools. To have the school, which are already heavily underfunded, buy 55,000 Trump Bibles. And this would have cost them $6 million. 49th in education, and they're spending $6 million on this fucking bullshit. Ryan Walters has constantly pushed for the Bible and other sorts of religious education in schools, saying it would be okay if it included the Constitution, which would actually be hilarious because the Constitution very much is against the idea of that. You can't see it. Republicans are trying to claim separation of church and state doesn't exist to push bullshit like this, even though, again, and even after this ruling, they're not going to stop. Because keep in mind, part of the Trump agenda includes forcing a Christian nationalist ideology onto everybody. They established an anti-Christian bias mission, which we all know what that fucking means. It's genuinely frustrating to see shit going in this direction. We cannot allow public funding to go to religious schools. It's a terrible idea, especially because, again, the Catholic Church of Oklahoma is running it. And while the Catholic charter school tried to argue that they weren't going to be discriminating against anyone while receiving public funding, they have this really suspicious policy that says the school will actively encourage chastity among all students, and all students must be addressed by their legal name and by pronouns that correspond with their biological sex. The use of standardized nicknames must be approved by parents, should correspond with the person's biological sex, and cannot be intended to communicate the student's ambivalence of his or her sex. All school dress, including for sports and other activities, should correspond to the student's biological sex and express the virtues of chastity and modesty. So, they're forcing chastity, and they have some pretty transphobic policies. Like, they literally require students to be dead named and to be misgendered. That is discrimination, whether they want to admit it or not. So, allowing public funding to go to a school like this, especially a school run by the Catholic Church of Oklahoma, is a horrible idea. And it would put so many students in a terrible situation, and it takes funds away from a school system that is already underfunded and very much fucked up. So what we need to do is we need to drag more attention to this kind of bullshit. We need to fight programs like this. We need to stop giving public funding to these types of schools. You cannot fund a school like this with taxpayer money. And if we truly care about education and making sure our kids are, well off and actually well educated, we need to pay attention to this issue. Not just to make sure church and state separation are maintained, but to also make sure that money isn't stolen from public schools to go to these fuckers. So, we need to pay attention to this, because this is just yet another way that organized religious groups are trying to force themselves into our kids' lives and into our lives. We all suffer because of this, so we need to stop it. And if your community is considering putting taxpayer money towards these types of programs, protest, bring attention to it, do not let it happen. We can stop them. Hell, Amy Coney Barrett stepped aside for this case because of the backlash. We do not want our children growing up being taught by the fucking Catholic Church for many reasons. Public education is important. And at a time like this, when the Department of Education is getting fucked and all these religious groups are hell-bent spending millions to force themselves into our schools, more than ever, we need to pay attention and we need to put a stop to their bullshit. And we can.